What's going on? It's your boy back again. I know I missed a week. It's not Reby, aka James. So I was talking the last time I did a video about editing change or a format change, and my format change might come now because I do want to cover the NFL in some form or fashion. I just want to cover football. Football is everything to me as far as sports is concerned. That's all I knew, all I've ever known. But so let's just start it off. This last Tuesday, college football week, I believe 11. We have started MACtion as of this last Tuesday, or a week ago, as of the recording of this video and the posting of this video. UMass 0-9 lost to Akron 44-10. Now, I want to preface this game as we're going to have to move quicker to get through a lot of these games because I want to cover a lot of football. 0-9, UMass just needs to go back to FCS Division II football at this point because they've taken two blown out losses to some of the lower tier. Kent State and Akron have both blown them out. There's not been a game where they were even competitive this year. It's crazy. So the Battle of the Bricks in Ohio. Miami of Ohio and Ohio came out on top 24-20, leaving Ohio at 6-3 and pretty good in the MAC, and 5-4 for Miami of Ohio, which is about where most of the MAC is, because you'll see, just like with parts of the ACC, parts of the Big Ten, and most of the middle of the pack guys, they just tear each other apart, and everybody's getting a piece of the pie. On Wednesday, Kent State, Ball State went together, and Ball State 17, Kent State 13, leaving Ball State 4-5. Like I said, a little bit behind Miami of Ohio, but still fighting chance. Kent State falls to 3-6, and pretty much where most people expected them to be. NIU, Northern Illinois, lost to Toledo 42-3, putting them down at 2-7 and putting Toledo at 5-4, equal with Miami of Ohio. And I mean, honestly, NIU has had a rough, long year, and it just continues to be as such. I don't think that maybe the blowout was what anybody expected, but you know, it is definitely something that was received. Now we move on to Thursday, including, you know, the Thursday night matchup. We had Georgia Southern beating Appalachian State to put them both at 4-5 in the Sun Belt, 25-23. A good close win there, and Georgia Southern continues to throw punches. They've been, whenever I've watched them, they've been pretty competitive. I ain't gonna lie. UTSA loss, going to 4-5. USF 55-23 goes to 7-2. Really, born for a weird loss. Well, I wouldn't call it a weird loss. A loss that they were going to take to Miami. Now looking at it, maybe it's not as great as it once was, but it's still Miami. They've really bounced back from that. And I believe it was, and I cannot remember off the top of my head who it was who actually ended up beating them a couple weeks ago. It might have been Memphis. Maybe that was a game I was thinking of this win. All right, we move on to our first NFL game. The Thursday night game was Denver snaking a 10-7 win against Las Vegas in a strikingly defensive battle, which I ain't gonna lie, that's been a very big theme of the NFL season, is defenses stepping up to the ball and really delivering. That puts Las Vegas at 2-7, and well, I mean, their season was long gone before this, but that was pretty much the final nail in the coffin, I'd say. I mean, honestly, last week was probably the nail in the coffin game. Yeah, this will do it. This will definitely do it. And for Denver, they're at 8-2 and pretty much the class of the AFC. And they just show that they could really wait it out. Goodness gracious. Move on to Friday. Houston goes up to 8-2 and puts UCF at 4-5 in the Big 12, with with a 30-27 victory. Houston's been playing very good this year. I would hazard to say, if it weren't for a couple of teams that they ran up, which are the class of the Big 12, or the actual competitors of the Big 12. Yeah, I mean, and on the other side, it was a good close game. Central Florida shouldn't be ashamed of what they've tried to accomplish here this season. Okay, good. Kick 'em. And it's just one of those years. I don't think anybody thought that they were going to be great, but I mean, they fought back from some adversity this year, just like so many teams. But yeah, Central Florida's been playing tough. Tulane beat Memphis 38-32, putting Tulane at 7-2 and Memphis at 8-2. The battle for that playoff spot grows exponentially wider for the G5 or the P6 or G6, whatever you want to call it, spot. Man, it's been fun to follow this the entire season, whether it be South Florida, Memphis, Tulane. I mean, these guys are really playing hard. North Texas was for a while. I don't know. In the final game on Friday, before we hit the weekend slate, Northwestern takes a loss to USC. I did not write down the score off the top of my head, but I do believe it was a blowout of some kind, and USC continues at 7-2 to be, well, consistently USC. Although, I would say, as an Oklahoma fan, Lincoln, shut up. You didn't risk a whole lot going there. They gave you a big-ass fat contract and then said, do something. And then you haven't been able to consistently link it all up to be extremely successful like everybody wants you to be. Sorry about that. All right, we move on to Saturday, a very fun thing. And we're going to groove into Indiana remains undefeated, defeating a wandering Penn State 27-24 on a last 2-minute drive, where Mendoza pretty much isolates and grounds himself to Heisman for this year. And pretty much, I think one of the last challenges for the rest of the year, as they only need 2 wins to go undefeated in the regular season, and then from there it's playoff bound. West Virginia beats Colorado, aka Colorado's back in the dungeons, and they are eliminated. West Virginia is eliminated. I mean, they were eliminated a while ago, but like, if we're talking about like, they both got to rebuild. I ain't gonna lie. West Virginia a little bit more, or Colorado a little bit more than West Virginia. It's strange. I think it's a staffing problem for Virginia, and it's really costing them. Really costing. I mean, some of it are his own fault. I ain't gonna lie. I've seen some bad coaching from him this year, but at this point, it's all about making it to next year and fixing the problems that you can fix. SMU 7-3 beat Boston College 45-13, and Bill O'Brien deserves to be fired more than any coach in the nation, and yet Boston College sits on their thumb and doesn't care. I wish that it didn't have to be this way, but maybe they're just sitting there looking. It could be worse. I mean, it could be, but I mean, 1-9 is pretty bad. You sound like Oklahoma State fans who the only thing that they go there for are banana men. Great. Can't have good football, but we can have great memes. Georgia versus Mississippi State, 41-21, and Georgia goes to 8-1 on this season. Mississippi State, I don't know whether it was a checkout or whether it was just a understanding that they're limited in certain regards on how they run their offense and what they can potentially do against other SEC competition. I don't think that their high end talent was going to float them. Next game, BYU, their first loss, going to 8-1 to Texas Tech, who goes to 9-1, 29-7. Pretty much the battle for the Big 12. Texas Tech and all their money came in and slapped BYU, who have been sitting pretty on top of their perch, being undefeated in the Big 12. But man, That was a statement game if I've ever seen one. Texas Tech, I think everybody just needs to keep their eyes on that as that goes forward, because they might actually have some legitimate chances to take a victory or two going into the playoffs and maybe competing for that TCU slot that the Big 12 takes in the national title. This game I wanted to mention because we recently, over the last handful of years, have had a lot of FCS teams get transferred over to the FBS, and more probably pending, I ain't gonna lie. Hopefully UMass gets sent down like Idaho, and they kind of realize that it's just not worth it to be really terrible at FBS football. Like, nobody goes to your games. Nobody cares. Missouri State 6-3, beating Liberty 21-17. They have been very consistent, very good, and they haven't really let anything get out of their grasp. There hasn't been a whole ton of games where you sat there and thought Missouri State was going to get their doors blown off, but the Bears really have stayed consistent and played within their brand of football. An undefeated team, the only undefeated team, I think. The second undefeated team, Ohio State, 34-10 against Purdue. Purdue falls to 2-8 and falls even further down into the doldrums of the Big Ten, and wondering why they can't be like the other gold and black team, which we will cover pretty soon, in the FBS. Meanwhile, Ohio State just continues to roll its Ohio State things, and I expect to see them in the national title again. There really is nothing challenging them. If they were having this year's Indiana versus them, I think it would be a very good game. We move on, because I don't follow Oklahoma State football very much. Tulsa, 2-1. Their only claim to fame is that they're better than Oklahoma State. They still have one more victory, but they may never win again in the season. And, losing to FAU 21-40, putting FAU at 4-5, it really shows you the disparity. I don't think the boosters care about the private school in Tulsa, but at the same time, who knows? They all obviously got their priorities in whatever order they want. Oregon 8-1, Iowa 6-3 after the slugfest that was 18-16. Oregon squeezed one out there. I was not expecting it to be like this. The way Oregon always talks about themselves, you would assume that maybe they would just blow the doors off of Iowa, but you forget that Iowa's got a defense and an offense that will be able to move if you give them an opportunity to move. Oregon let them move. And honestly, it almost cost them another loss here in the season, but they remain as vigilant and as competitive as ever. Vandy beat Auburn to go 8-2, 45-38, and put Auburn at 4-6. And there you go, Jackson Arnold. Hope you feel good. Guess you weren't that guy. I like how Auburn fans thought he was going to be the second coming, but then you forget that Oklahoma, the team that they liked to flex, had 6 quarterbacks starting in the NFL, and Heisman's, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Sam Bradford, all within the last 15 odd years. Quarterback you if you must. There's no more like Baker Mayfield, Hurts, Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams. It was Kyler. That's just, that's a handful of guys. That to have Jackson Arnold go to Auburn and him do the exact same thing he was very well known to be doing in Buffalo or in Oklahoma is unsurprising to me. Honestly, I think that every Auburn fan should just be lucky that they got away with the 4 wins that they did. It looks a lot like last year, except for that they can move the ball. I would never put that against them. We move to Washington, who loses to Wisconsin 10-13. So, not great. Now we move on to the final little bit of our Saturday slate, and then we can move on to the Sunday and Monday Fun Fest. Wake Forest beat Virginia. In my opinion, Virginia should have probably done what they've done all season, played their brand of football instead of trying to. Well, actually, they did. They kept it close, but they didn't manage to score enough. honestly, I think this is where I've been seeing Virginia's offense being in the last couple weeks. They've been struggling to really be able to produce and score and consistently be able to do what they're doing. But to be at 8-2, honestly, it just shows you where the ACC is. It's that time of the year where the ACC is kind of imploding onto itself. And a perfect example would be the Louisville losing to Cal, 29-26. Cal now at 6-4 with, I think it's JSK, their quarterback, and Louisville landing down at 7-2. Man, you don't expect these kind of things, but like I said, ACC about this time of year, it's party mode. Everybody loses. Everybody has an opportunity to lose, no matter what. So Navy falls to 7-2 because they face Notre Dame, who now goes to 7-2 and is somehow ranked in the top fucking 10. I guess there is a lot of two-loss teams. 49-10 was the final result. Notre Dame absolutely obliterated Navy's defense, and the offense for Navy, when you're playing against pretty much most of what could be a very poor or like a third-string NFL team versus a Navy team which, if played right, if the defense doesn't let go of a lot of scores, which, man, Notre Dame's just playing angry. I don't know. Still don't think that maybe they deserve the top 10. Maybe. But, I mean, we move on to LSU and Alabama. Alabama 20, LSU 9. LSU falls to 5-4 in the season. Alabama goes to 8-1. Alabama's been pretty consistent and done good things throughout the season. And they took care of business here. LSU fired Brian Kelly, and just like with James Franklin, just like with any of the teams that have fired their coach halfway through the season, it's inevitably throw your hands up and just wait for the season to get to the offseason and hope for next year. And especially these big names, these big teams, they're going to go disco party mode all over that portal and throw money around like it ain't no business. Our next game, Nebraska clinches one out 28-21 against UCLA. UCLA has stopped winning after they have won 2 in a row. And they've gone back to being the UCLA everyone remembers them to be. Yeah, miracle runs could end quickly, but I don't think anybody thought that this team was going to win even 3 games on the season, given the way that they had started the season. But here we are. They're a little bit better than what we expected, but still another one of the big name teams that in the offseason probably will hit it hard. And you want to talk about surprises? I want to talk about competition. A 7-2 San Diego State now lost to a now 7-3 Hawaii, 38-6. And here I was, week 4, 5, 6, thinking Hawaii was mad doo-doo and was really not trying their hardest and was going to go sub 500. But my, oh my, the Timmy Chang train, 7-3 from Hawaii. Man, those retirement people probably put the money down in on that. I can't wait to see what happens the next handful of seasons for them, because it's only gotten kind of better, and the regime has been consistent with all of that. And so we move on to Sunday. You know what Sunday means? It's the NFL, baby. And as you can see, diehard Bills fan, so my weekend was rough because I didn't even have Oklahoma to try and make me even more depressed or make me slightly more happy about how the weekend went. We start with the early slate in Germany, I believe. Atlanta losing in overtime to Indianapolis, 31-25. Indianapolis now at 8-2 in the season, in prime position to just win their division and go into the playoffs and be as successful as their team will let them be. I mean, honestly, at this point, they did a good job bouncing back after they got throttled. And honestly, on the opposite side, 3-6 Atlanta, as they are my NFC team that I follow every year and one of my good friends' favorite teams. It's been another rough year for no particular reason. I really think that the inconsistencies start with the coaching staff, but also there's been players who just haven't lived up to the expectations, and really the offensive line, the offensive and defensive line still are such a big problem. I want to give Penix some more time. but I don't know what the actual top side of him is. I've always thought of him as maybe a guy who could be maybe where Sam Darnold ended up with his first year, where we're just sitting there going, he can do a lot, but is it because of the team that needs to be better? Or is it because he independently is better than people give him credit for? I think it's maybe one of the situations where you got to feel him out. He isn't really a hot prospect. Like, I don't think he's like a top tier prospect. I think he's a starting quarterback, but it's hard to tell with how this offensive and defensive line be playing, not really giving opportunities for victories. We stay in Atlanta's division with a divisional game. New Orleans beating Carolina 17-7. Bad time for New Orleans, although kind of doesn't matter. I think the bottom of the barrel is 2 losses. I think even the worst teams could get a couple wins here and there. But for the purposes of what New Orleans wants to be doing, maybe losing to Carolina next time or when it's a divisional round is probably better. Carolina falls to 5-5, and they've been all right. I mean, their record proves who they are. They are very, very okay at best. There's nothing I want to write home about. Rico Dowdle took away Truba Hubbard's starting position. That's something you didn't see, and honestly, that's been the biggest news. And I'm not ashamed to say that. New York losing to Chicago and firing Brian Daboll. Now 2-8. Chicago's 6-3. Chicago's really been consistently fine. They've been having a functional offense. Caleb Williams has been rolling that offense up. They've been playing within a good system. They're playing a lot of trick plays, which is what Ben Johnson does best. And New York, yeah, I would have fired Daboll probably before the season. I probably would have gotten a new coach this last offseason. I don't care who you would have put at quarterback or running back. Rest in peace, Scatterboo, for this season. My boy, that man can run. That man was a fun runner. That's why he was my favorite last year. At the end of last year, he was my favorite running back to watch. Just because of his physicality and just his willingness to play into the physicality of the defense and kind of wear him out. It's a 2-for-1. The offense line and slaps around the defense line, and then that guy puts his shoulder down into the middle of a linebacker's chest. They won't want to get to him because he's just going to pop him every single time. But regardless, he's out for the season, and around that, you kind of got to make do with what you got, and Brian Daboll has not been able to do that, and he's not been able to provide any amount of, like, I guess for me, there hasn't been any juice, as they call it. We move on. Jacksonville, Houston. Houston, 36. Jacksonville, 29. Wow. A little bit of wind gust. Apologies. Houston, 4-5. Jacksonville, 5-4. Honestly, divisional games always like this. Matter of fact, Miami beats Buffalo 30-13. Blah, 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 blah. Buffalo has their 3rd loss on the season, and I personally am getting kind of mildly obnoxiously annoyed with what Sean McDermott be saying sometimes. I honestly was kind of pissed off with saying that they had to restart the offense from 0 going into the bye week, and now it just seems like our offense is depends on whether they want to offense, or whether they, man, I don't know. Just hand the ball off a lot more. Just figure out a way to run the ball physically. I'm getting that's how you know I'm frustrated. Just like I am with Atlanta. There's no reason for these teams to, especially Buffalo. Baltimore beating Minnesota on the trail back. Yes, I know. They're going to make the playoffs at this point. Minnesota really didn't show up, and they've been struggling. I don't know. J.J. McCarthy might not be that guy. I think that there's been an extreme amount of hype because he got injured so early and nobody got to see him really. Cleveland loses to the Jets. Now they're both 2-7. So just like I said with New Orleans, they took a loss, but like that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of 2-loss teams here. The Depression Bowl ended exactly like how you did expect. New England goes to 8-2, and I hate New England with a violent passion, beating Tampa Bay to make him 6-3, 28-23. Like I said, violently angry with the re-rise of New England, and I wish that they would go back into the hole and be back where they were in the 80s. Arizona, 22. dead in the water, bench Kyler Murray, and that was the right move. Kyler Murray is... and Caleb Williams is exactly like Kyler Murray, except for a little bit taller and probably got a little bit more longevity because of that. And he doesn't rely so much on the fact that he has to make those plays. Rams 42, San Francisco 26. Rams 7-2, San Francisco 6-4. San Francisco forming part of the team's question mark. We move on. Detroit 44, Washington 22. Without Jalen Daniels, Detroit just handled business. I mean, that was what you expected without the starting quarterback. And honestly, it's a lost season for Washington. Pittsburgh 5-4 now after a loss to the Chargers 25-10. And on Monday, Philly beat Green Bay 10-7 to go 7-2 on the season and put Green Bay at 5-3-1. So that's a super long, and it might be this way permanently because I kind of like just going over everything that's happened in the week of football, including like NFL and college. But till next time, it's been fun. It's been not freebie, and I'll probably be doing this format again.